All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined right now by our friend Bill Kristol, founder and editor of the Weekly Standard and ABC News contributor. Hello, Bill.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Good. Great to talk to you again, sir. Thank you very much for coming on. I want to play you a soundbite here of actually a video clip / soundbite of Susan Rice, who did not make the circuit. Did not make all the rounds, but she did manage to stop it, the ultra-friendly Meet the Press, and here's some of what she had to say.
Do you have any regrets?
David, no, because what I said to you that morning and what I did every day since was to share the best information that we had at the time. The information I provided, which I explained to you, was what we had at the moment. It could change. I commented that this was based on what we knew on that morning, was provided to me and my colleagues, and indeed to Congress, by the intelligence community. And that's been well validated in many different ways since. And that information turned out in some respects not to be 100% correct. But the notion that somehow I or anybody else in the administration misled the American people is patently false. And I think that that's been amply demonstrated.
John McCain, upon hearing that, laughed and said it's embarrassing to hear her say that.
It is pathetic. I mean, it's patently true. It just is a factual matter, true, that she misled the American people. Maybe it was inadvertent, in which case she should still express regrets. I mean, that's the most astounding thing. I hadn't heard the actual soundbite. I'd read about what she had said.
That's why we're here, Bill.
You're doing a good job there. When she says, well, I guess she's asked, do you have any regrets? And as I recall, the first thing she says is no. Think about that. Let's say someone told you, I don't know, by mistake, meet me at 5 p.m. here for a coffee, and then they thought it was the next day, and you didn't show up. It wasn't on your. It wasn't. Maybe you would have missed. Maybe a second friend had given you the wrong day. Whatever. It's not your fault. It was inadvertent. It was unintentional. If someone asked me, did I have regrets about standing up my friend at 5 p.m., even though it wasn't my fault in some sense that I intended it, I would say, of course I regret it, right? I mean, and that's what's sort of amazing about her, and I do think she reflects her boss in this way. It's one thing to sort of hang tough, make your case, say that you didn't do it on purpose. These are unfortunate side effects sometimes of running a complex government. It's something to say, I don't have any regrets, which she said, and which President Obama has said about various things in different ways as well. They really don't. They don't like to admit when they've been wrong, even though she then said she was wrong.
Right. So what? Yeah, right. She said some of the information wasn't correct, but I have no regrets. So what quality would you say she reflect? She puts forth that the president also. What quality is it, or not a good one, that makes them both be able to behave this way?
It was kind of arrogance, I think, probably a sense that you just can't give anything into your critics because then you've opened the door, I suppose. But I do think it's a kind of arrogance and a kind of contempt for the American people. I mean, I've been in the executive branch, much lower level than Susan Rice, but, if I misled people, I would say, you're working for the public. I would say, look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, obviously. I got some bad information. I should have double-checked it more carefully. But in any case, I'm sorry if I misled you. She is a public servant, it's not, and for her to not see that there was a problem, and that it is a problem when the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations goes on national television and says certain things and is part of a narrative that then goes on for days and weeks that's deeply misleading, leaving aside whether it was intentional or not, and I'm not so sure that it's quite so clear that it was all just an honest mistake. It turns out Steve Hayes has reported for us in the current issue of the magazine that the number 2 guy at the CIA seems to have been very much colluding with the Clinton State Department, the White House, to cover up what really had happened at Benghazi. But again, leaving all that aside, what is amazing is they don't seem to feel they have any obligation to the public for whom they are supposed to be working to tell the truth or to express regrets when they don't tell the truth.
What are we seeing in Ukraine right now? Of course, with the departure of the president and the country, still undecided. And wouldn't you have loved to have been tapping into wouldn't you have loved to have been in an NSA room as they listened to Obama and Putin have that conversation on Friday regarding Ukraine? Things have happened since then. What do you think the future holds?
I don't know. I mean, I hope, by God, I wish the people in the Ukraine who like a better life and like a life of freedom and rule of law and less corruption, I wish them well. It's a tough place. Even the best, strongest American president, there are probably limits to what we could do to help, but at least we would be trying to help if we had a strong American president, and at least we would be pushing back against Putin. What's so depressing all around the world is people rise up in Iran and Syria and Ukraine, clearly originally pretty pro-Western, pretty just trying to free themselves from really crummy and odious regimes, And we sit on the sideline. The American president sits on the sideline. There's a legitimate debate, and we have it among conservatives about when to intervene exactly, when you might use force, when you might use sanctions, when you might just use moral pressure, how much you depend on your allies. Those are the questions of foreign policy that are debated. But for an American president to just sort of stay out of it is really, I think, almost unprecedented in the last 70 years or so. And
yeah, well, you wrote a great piece in the I assume it's in the magazine March 3rd edition. Obama calls retreat, and you were writing about Syria, but obviously by extension that applies to just most of the foreign policy.
Yeah, it is, and it's dangerous. I just don't think people here quite understand how dangerous it can be if everyone around the world, if all the thugs and strongmen think we're in retreat, that we aren't serious when we say we're going to do something. And, I hope for the country's sake that that Obama maybe changes a little, that Congress pushes back more. Frankly, the Republicans and conservatives push back as much as they can, not simply to score political points, though I'm happy to, criticize Obama and have the voters agree with us also, but honestly to push him back so that there's less of a free fall here in American foreign policy than there would otherwise be.
When Obama went up to Monticello and was touring around and giving a tour, and he broke protocol, and we know the context in which he said what he said, which was, I'm breaking protocol, I'm the president, I could do whatever I want. I mean, that was you wrote a piece with that title, I could do whatever I want, and you talked about that, but I truly believe, because, every single day now, Bill, this president, wherever he is, whatever the topic, says, I'll like to work with Congress, but if I can't, then I'll do whatever I can do to. So he's just, holding that pen and just can't wait to unilaterally, either through an executive order, through the use of the EPA or the FCC, which that plan is now on hold. Whatever the issue, whatever the topic, he will do whatever he can within the limits of power and beyond to unilaterally impose his will, and he brags about it.
Yeah, it is unnerving. It's one thing to have policy differences with the incumbent administration. It's another to really not trust them to obey the basic fabric of the rule of law, to defer when a law has been passed, to implement it fairly, and if they want to try to change it, of course, that's fine. Go to Congress and try to do so, but just to waive things and change dates. And it is of a piece in a funny way with what Susan Rice said yesterday on the Sunday show, because it is that kind of arrogance of we're in charge. We don't have to worry about Congress. We don't have to apologize to the American public when we've misled them. Just, back off and let us do what we want. I mean, that really is, I can see why people find the current moment a little more than just not liking the current president or not agreeing with his policies. There's something unnerving about it, actually.
Now, you made a remark, a comment the other day. You were on the ABC This Week, I guess it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, about Obama's disdain for the Cold War as we go back to Putin and the relationship. Explain.
Well, I guess he had been quoted, so I think he said last Wednesday at a press conference, this isn't just some chessboard, Cold War chessboard, that he went on to explain how we're working for the people in Syria and Ukraine. But what's interesting is that first half of that sentence, or first sentence. I mean, what does that mean? It's not just some Cold War chessboard. Was that just a bunch of, people cavalierly moving chess pieces around with no purpose, with no moral standing or backing or intention? I mean, some of us are pretty proud of what the U.S. did during the Cold War. Made some real sacrifices. We were on the right side. We made some mistakes, but at the end of the day, it was pretty successful. Won the Cold War without firing a shot, thanks primarily to Ronald Reagan and some others as well, and a lot of others, frankly, over the decades, And for Obama to just treat it that way shows, for an American president to say that, is just, I don't know, it shows some deep, I guess this is what he believed when he was a kid at Columbia. The Cold War was unnecessary. The U.S. was probably equally as responsible as the Soviet Union. It was a foolish arms race on both sides, et cetera, et cetera.
And how about wanting to apologize to Japan? And how about when he was talking about to ABC News way back that he doesn't like to use the word victory as it applies to Afghanistan because it evokes memories of Hirohito surrendering and coming down, which, of course, it was never him coming down to negotiate the surrender. But, I mean, that always struck me as let's be kind and say very strange also.
Yeah, right. I mean, isn't that a wonderful,
wonderful moment for us? Yeah.
A lot of people sacrifice to make that
whiz.
moment possible. So, yeah, no, it's unnerving to have a president with this view of the world, and I think we're seeing real consequences of it.
Yeah, we absolutely are. One more very quickly here. The announcement today by Chuck Hagel, as expected, and the cuts in the defense budget, and most notably, I guess, the Army going back to pre-World War II numbers for their troop levels.
No, I mean, it's pretty appalling. We can afford better. We can afford to do more, and I think it's very dangerous. And the resonance, the symbolism almost of going to the pre-World War II levels. The last time we were just thinking we could check out of the world was before World War II, and look what happened.
Yeah. Bill, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Take care. Bill Kristol, the founder and editor of the Weekly Standard and ABC News contributor, here on the Steve Malzberg Show.